It's kind of like the authentic self, the authentic way of living. I'm not saying one thing, saying, yes, of course I will, when inside I'm saying, no, God, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Please let me free of this stupid life of saying yes to everybody. That we wake up at some point in time. Some of us don't wake up ever. But, I mean, there is a potential for waking up to the fact that saying yes when you mean no drives you and everybody else crazy. You're not really doing anybody else any favor, because the yes and then what you do for them is accompanied by an emotion that is liking to hate, resentment, blame. And so we live our lives, the first section of our lives, we live it in blame. We blame everybody outside of us. And we have a lot of proof to say that they are crazy and they are mean and they're just like my parents and what they did. And as children, we get to blame our parents because they were in control. And you can see that there's a process you have to go through, yeah, your parents were responsible. They were responsible. You were not responsible for the abuse that they levied on you, no matter how bad they said you were, beating you and hurting you and raping you and doing these things. That's parent stuff. That's their responsibility. No matter what you did, that's their responsibility. They never should have done that to you. All you're responsible for is to take your life back now. Is to say, as a child, I made some mistakes. That's right, you're allowed to make mistakes as a child. Even by law, you can make some horrendous mistakes, and you're forgiven. Because children are not held responsible for their acts. Now, as spirits, we're held responsible for everything, because that's not to go back and beat yourself up. That's to move yourself forward. That's to say, I wonder why I pulled that into me. Say, oh, what? Wait a minute. You mean I'm responsible for him beating the crap out of me every day? No, he's responsible for beating the hell out of you every day. And he was wrong, and to speak lightly of it being bad parenting or monstrous, whatever it was, he's responsible for that. But now it's your job to take your life back, to take your power back. He took your power away from you. And that's, up until 14 or 15, there's probably nothing we can do until we hit the hormones and things start changing in our brains and we start realizing that we can work under our own power. And then, we start developing things like addictions and things to bury this pain in the past, this confusion. Because the person who was supposed to take very good care of us beat us, hurt us, broke a sacred vow not to abuse us. Then there's the process of getting straight about it, not denying it. Denying it, saying, oh, well, he was also beaten and he was into alcohol, and because of the alcohol, that's why he did it. That may be true, but that doesn't hurt any less. It doesn't hurt the child any less. The child in you is still very hurt by that. So that doesn't really work. That doesn't really clear anything up. So therefore, I should be okay with this, You can't be okay until you release the emotional energy. And you can't release the emotional energy through the intellect. The emotional energy is released through emotions. You have to cry. You have to perhaps be angry, maybe pound the pillow. But we're talking about releasing, I'm not talking about going and pounding the pillow and putting an effigy or an image of the person on the pillow and hating them and pounding them. It's creating more violence. It's more violence, Sometimes just pounding a pillow or screaming on a pillow when it's just about releasing the pressure, releasing the energy, so you can get to what's bothering you. So you can get to this negativity, The negativity exists in the past, but that past brain in the memory is stored, that we call them storehouses. Scientifically, proven, that there are storehouses, that's it, that's the way it is. Brain's full of storehouses. They can tap one part of your brain and, you'll sing a song that was, you couldn't possibly remember when you were 4 years old. It's all there. It's all stored away. Some of it's stored in very powerful electromagnetically charged places, and tends to build up this charge and needs to be released. If you don't release it consciously, through processing, through getting straight about the past, that I was abused, I was sexually abused, and I don't know, sometimes you can't really wipe that away, So we know that when I react a certain way, I'm going to this kind of abyss that I have, and you start to learn that the abyss is there, and maybe you want to stay away from the abyss, because the only thing that fills that in is love. And at the moment, because somebody took that away, or you think they took that away, then you can't feel any love, and so you're kind of stuck. You're stuck in between worlds. There's this world of love, where it's a giving process, where you give your heart, you give to something, and then this world in the past, where you were supposed to be given and taught about love, but instead you were beaten, instead you were abused, you were ridiculed, you were sent off to institutions, school, where the little beings there who were also having this done, or enough of them were having it done, transferred it to you. So you spent a lot of time with people who were actually your teachers, students, students, who you learned from them abuse, and you picked it up from them. You picked up the drug addiction. You picked up all these habits that they had. At some point in time, you want to take responsibility for that and say, yeah, that's what I did. Okay. There's some emotional processing going on, I mean, it doesn't go away right away, Even the first time you say, oh, wow, I just had this big realization, or I just found out that I was sexually abused when I was 8 years old, And wow, I found out who it was, my uncle, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, somebody. I said, wow, that's really explains a lot of things, what's going on. That's good insight, But this continuous follow-up, you need to follow. This is not going to go away, It's something that you breathe out. You understand that it keeps. It's like a weed. It keeps growing back in. You have to pluck it out again. You can say, "Oh, I'm finished with that." Well, maybe you are, but keep a vigil. Keep a vigil, because if it comes back in again, you say, "Ah, this thing is back again." This feeling of abandonment. Because my parents went to work and left me at home a lucky kid. And you say, every day I had to get my own dinner and stuff like that, so I got abandonment coming up because you're not coming home for dinner. That's the way it works, It's not that he's not coming home for dinner, it's that his not coming home hits your abandonment program. The abandonment program you got because of something happening in the past. Okay? You keep bringing that forward, all that emotion, So there are processes where we go back and we release this, The trick is not to identify with it, not to say, okay, so my past, I had a bad past, that's why, I can be a jerk, and I can be a mean person, I can be an unhappy person. That's not the answer. That's not what it's for. Go back and release it, You think about it, you process it, it's in your brain, and it's running the parts of your brain that are trying to function in the here and now. It's bringing the present in the past into the present. When we get into our relationships with people, with husband and wife, we bring. It's guaranteed that he's going to project mother onto you. Guaranteed. It's not even a theory. Every single case, it's what's going to happen. That may be good. That may be bad. It's always bad in the way of, but it's normal. I mean, it's something where if you don't wake up to it, if you keep doing it, then you set up what we call roles, and then roles is the fertile ground for resentment, hatred, not being straight with one another, and of course, separation and divorce. That's what happens. And when you look and just saying, God, not only was I projecting mother onto her, but she was projecting father or son or something onto me. These projections, the way we see one another, the way we think of one another, are very prevalent. I mean, it's like, When we got married, we had already been studying this for years.